Ever lie awake at night thinking about random disturbing things you wish you could unlearn? Well, buckle up, because I'm about to make that so much worse for you. I'm talking about facts so unsettling, they'll have you questioning everything, from the food you eat, to the bugs crawling around your house, to what's actually happening inside your own body right now. Some of these will gross you out, others will freak you out, and a few might make you want to sleep with the lights on for the next week or so. Fair warning, once you hear them, you can't unhear them. They are going to pop into your head at the worst possible moments, and you'll have no one to blame but yourself. Maybe me. But you watch this video. I'm Mike with List25, and today I'm counting down 25 unsettling facts that'll keep you up at 3 a.m. Don't say I didn't warn you. But before we begin, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe with that notification bell. It really helps the channel. And let us know what other disturbing topics you'd like to see next. With all that said, let's go. 25. Criminal presidents. The US Constitution has shockingly few requirements for becoming president, and not being a criminal isn't one of them. In fact, you could be convicted of dozens of felonies and still legally run for, and even win, the presidency. The only rules? Be a natural-born citizen, be 35 years or older, and live in the country for at least 14 years. That's it. No background checks, no moral compass, nothing about your criminal record. Sure, there are practical problems. Being locked up makes campaigning tricky, and convincing voters to elect someone with a rap sheet longer than a CVS receipt isn't easy, but it's not impossible. Legally speaking, the Constitution doesn't care. The Founding Fathers were apparently more worried about age and citizenship than whether or not the president had committed crimes. This loophole means the highest office in the land is governed more by birth certificates and years lived than by any legal or moral standard. Wild, right? 24. The Scold's Bridle. Ever complain about someone talking too much? Well, between the 16th and 18th centuries, Europe took that annoyance to a whole new level with a torture device specifically designed to silence women. This charming little contraption was called the Scold's Bridle, and it was exactly as horrific as it sounds. It was a metal cage that locked around a woman's head with a bit that pressed down on her tongue, making it physically impossible to speak. Some versions came with spikes or sharp edges that would cut into the mouth if the victim tried to move or speak. As if that wasn't enough, the real punishment was humiliation. Women wearing them were paraded through town so everyone could see them and take turns publicly shaming them like it was a spectator sport. The crime that earned this punishment? Gossiping, nagging, or just being considered unruly. Basically, simply having opinions while female was enough. The device may be gone in 2025, but the impulse to silence a woman for speaking up, well, that's still alive and well. 23. Honey sickness. Medieval doctors had a truly disgusting technique, and you're not gonna like hearing it. They would literally test your urine to check if it was sweet. Yeah, taste it. With their mouths. Back then, diabetes was called honey sickness because excess glucose in the blood would spill into the urine, making it taste sugary. Physicians had no choice but to rely on their taste buds to detect the sweetness and confirm the diagnosis. They'd sample a patient's pee like sommeliers at wine tasting, except infinitely more horrifying. This wasn't just some weird one-off thing either. Urine tasting was a standard medical practice for centuries before modern diagnostic tools existed. Medicine has come a long way, and we should all be grateful to live in an era of blood tests instead of pee sipping. Or if they swirled it around. Yes. It's aged quite well. 22. Hawk moths. Nature is full of bizarre defense mechanisms, but this one might be one of the weirdest. I am so sorry about this, but since I had to know it, well, now you get to know it too. Because on this channel, I love spreading trauma. Anyway, did you know some species of hawk moths have evolved a way to escape bats by vibrating their genitalia at ultrasonic frequencies? Yep, you heard me correctly. Why would they do this? Bats are basically airborne murder machines that hunt in the dark using sonar. They scream into the void, listen for echoes, and boom, dinner located. Not ideal if you're a moth. So hawk moths evolved the most absurd defense ever. They just scream back louder, using their junk inside their trunk. Can't find the target? The bat gives up and finds an easier snack that doesn't come with built-in jamming technology. It's like electronic warfare, except instead of fighter jets deploying countermeasures, it's a moth shaking its no-no bits to avoid getting eaten. Nature is weird. 21. Thelazia. Ready for more nightmare fuel? There are parasitic worms that live in your eyes. You are so welcome for that information. Oh, you want to know more? Great! They're called Thelazia, and they set up camp in your tear ducts, eyelids, and the tissue around your eyeballs, where they feast on your tears like tiny, horrifying vampires. These worms cause a condition called Thelasiasis, which leads to irritation, redness, and excessive tearing. And in several cases, these mini beasts can cause actual damage to your eyes. And that's not even the most disturbing part. What's really disturbing is how they got there. Fruit flies act as a delivery system. When it lands on an infected animal's eyes to drink its tears, it picks up worm larvae. Those larvae mature inside the fly, and when that same fly lands on your eye for a little snack, it leaves those larvae directly under your eyeball as one of the worst thank you gifts of all time. So yeah, next time a tiny fly buzzes near your face, just remember it might be trying to drop off some unwanted guests that'll make themselves at home right in your tear ducts. Sweet dreams. 20. The bizarre love life of the anglerfish. Deep-sea anglerfish males are tiny compared to the females, and they can't survive long on their own in these sparse ocean depths. So when a male finds a female, he bites into her body and fuses with her permanently. No, not like a hug, like actual biological fusion. Joke's on him, though. Over time, the male loses almost everything. His heart, his digestive system, and even his brain, until he's essentially just a living sperm-producing lump attached to her body. His blood supply merges with hers, so she feeds him while he exists solely to fertilize her eggs whenever she's ready. Some females even have multiple males attached to them at once, like the world's most disturbing accessories. The male anglerfish gives up his entire existence and becomes nothing more than a biological appendage. Maybe that'll teach him not to abuse his partner by biting her. Karma. 19. About 30% of feces in humans is dead bacteria. Think you know what's in your waste? Think again. About 30% of the solid mass in human feces is dead bacteria. Not food waste, not fiber, just dead microbes that lived in your gut. Your intestines are packed with trillions of bacteria that help digest food, create vitamins, and keep your immune system running. These microscopic workers are vital to survival, but they don't live forever. As they die, they pass through your digestive tract. Your poop is packed with their tiny corpses that have piled up to become what comes out of you. This massive bacterial presence is also why your poop smells the way it does and how it looks. I'm so glad I told you this. I just wish I could see all your horrified faces hearing about how every time you poop, you're flushing millions of your body's fallen residents. You are so very welcome. 18. Roman toothpaste. Back in ancient Rome, dental hygiene practices were seriously questionable, but this one tops the list. Romans would crush up mouse brains and use them as toothpaste. Yes, tiny rodent brains smeared across their teeth like it was a totally normal thing to do. They'd mix the crushed up brains with abrasives like crushed bones or shells and add some charcoal for flavor. Why did they think this was a good idea? We have no idea. But they did, and it was vile. Roman dentistry was advanced for the time in many ways, but they had absolutely no idea or understanding of bacteria, enamel decay, or how cavities worked. They were doing their best, and their best was to use mouse brains. Modern toothpaste has never looked so good. 17. Feodor Vassilyev. Feodor was an 18th century Russian peasant who holds the world record for fathering the most children, and the numbers are absolutely insane. According to church records, His first wife gave birth to 69 children between 1725 and 1765. 69. And that is not a typo. The breakdown makes it even wilder. 16 pairs of twins, 7 sets of triplets, and 4 sets of quadruplets. She was basically a baby factory for 4 decades straight. But wait, there's more. Feodor's second wife had 18 more children, bringing his total to 87. Don't believe me? Guinness World Records verified the information, and it's still right there in their book. Think about this for a second. 87 kids. That is 87 names to remember, birthdays to remember, and a whole lot of mouths to feed. This man populated an entire small village just by existing. 16. Intestines reposition themselves. When your body goes through something like a pregnancy or an abdominal surgery, your intestines know exactly how to put themselves back where they belong. They just kind of figure it out for themselves, and most of the time they are right. When doctors need to move your intestines during surgery, they don't create some detailed map to remember the exact placement. Instead, they loosely place them back in your abdominal cavity and let gravity, peristalsis, and your body's own connective tissue do the rest. Your intestines are super mobile and will very literally wiggle themselves back into their optimal position over time. Some patients report feeling movement in their abdomen after giving birth or being cut into as their guts shift around and settle back down. It's not painful, but it's super strange to think about. So yeah, your intestines are out there playing Tetris inside your body because that's just what they do. Hopefully not out there. They should probably be in there. 15. Man lived with lover's corpse. Carl Tanzler was a radiology tech in Key West and became obsessed with Maria Elena Milagro de Hoyos when he treated her for tuberculosis in the late 20s. When she died from the disease in 1931, he couldn't let her go. So he didn't. He literally dug up her corpse from the cemetery, brought it home, and kept it in his house for 7 years. During that time, he used embalming chemicals, wax, and plaster to reconstruct her decaying body. He lived with that corpse, talked to it, and cared for it like she was still alive. He was fully convinced he was maintaining some sort of connection to her. Authorities eventually discovered what he was doing in the 40s, and the public understandably lost their minds. He was arrested, of course, but in a wild twist, was never convicted. The statute of limitations had run out, and legally there was no malicious intent. He got away with robbing a grave and using a corpse to fulfill his sick and twisted obsession. 14. Living without visual imagination. After hearing about all these disturbing facts, you're probably picturing some pretty horrific mental images right now. But what if you literally couldn't? About 4% of people can't visualize anything in their minds at all. It's called aphantasia, and people with this condition have zero mental visuals. And I truly mean none. When you tell them to imagine a beach, they get the concept and they can describe it, but they can't see it in their minds. No sunset, no waves, no sand, just nothing. They process everything through words, feelings, sounds, or abstract ideas instead of images. So, while you're over here traumatized by mental images of eye worms, they're moving on with their day completely unbothered. Lucky them, honestly. Most people with aphantasia don't even realize they're different until someone mentions visualizing something. And they're like, wait, you can actually see things in your head? 13. Mystery of the Salish Sea Feet. Since 2007, at least 24 detached human feet have been discovered along the coast of the Salish Sea in British Columbia and Washington State. Just feet. Still in their shoes. This isn't some kind of serial killer situation, despite definitely sounding like one. Investigations revealed that when a body decomposes in water, the feet naturally detach, and modern sneakers are so buoyant that they basically float. The shoes protect the feet from sea life and keep them intact while being floated to shore. These feet aren't evidence of foul play, they're just the natural result of drownings, self-life takings, and accidents where people wore really good athletic footwear. The durability of modern shoes means feet can drift for months or even years before washing up on shore. Still unsettling as hell, though. One minute you're having a nice walk on a beach, the next you're calling the cops because there's a sneaker with a foot still in it sitting on the sand. 12. Iceland's Necropants wealth ritual. The land of fire and ice has given us some pretty cool things. Geysers, northern lights, Kaleo, Bjork, and one of the most disturbing folk traditions in history. Necropants. Yes, necropants. I said what I said. Don't know what I'm talking about? Now just wait until I tell you about it. According to 17th century Icelandic folklore, you could become insanely wealthy by making yourself some fancy pants. But not just any fancy pants. These ones had to be made out of a dead man's skin. Oh, and you needed consent of his surviving family first, which somehow makes it worse, doesn't it? Once you had permission, you'd skin the corpse from the waist down in one piece, fashion it into pants, and put those skin leggings on, and like it. That's not all, folks. Once you're feeling all snug as a bug in a rug, you just need to place a magician coin or a rune inside the pants, and that coin will multiply endlessly and make you rich forever. This wasn't just some obscure myth either. This ritual was tied to Iceland's broader traditions of sorcery and rune magic. People genuinely believed it would bring them wealth, and actually made some. There's a pair of replica necropants in a museum in Iceland, and they're as frightfully fashionable as you can imagine. 11. Cannibalism in Soviet gulags. The Soviet gulags were an absolute nightmare. Freezing Siberian temperatures, brutal labor, and starvation rations meant there was very little chance for survival. But some veteran prisoners found a way to make escape attempts absolutely horrific. Experienced inmates would sometimes recruit new, naive prisoners, referred to as cows, to join them in escape attempts. These newbies thought they were being invited to the cool kids' table to give some extra manpower. Instead, the veterans had a different plan. If food ran out in the wilderness, the new guy wasn't a teammate anymore, he was dinner. No, this isn't an urban legend or even exaggerated horror story. This was a documented survival strategy in the gulags. The old-timers knew the environment, understood the risks, and picked their mark carefully. Survival in the gulags required ruthless determination, and for some prisoners, it meant resorting to cannibalism for the chance of escaping the hellscape. 10. Pilot licenses exposed. In Pakistan, a massive aviation scandal revealed that over 260 commercial pilots out of 860 active pilots had a fake license or cheated on their exam. They either bought fraudulent licenses outright or had someone else take their exams for them, and no one noticed for years. These weren't pilots or hobbyists. They were people flying full commercial aircraft that were packed with passengers. They had zero business being in the cockpit, yet there they were, hands all over the buttons. The scandal broke after a Pakistan International Airlines crash in May 2020 killed 97 people. Investigators discovered the pilot was a fraud, and it triggered a massive investigation that exposed the whole operation. The country's aviation minister had to stand up in Parliament and admit the catastrophic mistakes that led to all these fake pilots manning planes. Has this happened anywhere else? Well, not that we know of. But the next time you're about to take off, just remember that the chances of the pilot Googling how to land a plane 5 minutes before takeoff are super low, but it's never zero. 9. Jumping Frenchmen of Maine. The jumping Frenchman of Maine was first observed in the late 19th century among French-Canadian lumberjacks working in the Moosehead Lake region of Maine. When these men got started, they didn't just jump. They would involuntarily shout, mimic words, or immediately just do whatever they were told, no matter how dangerous or absurd. Sounds like hypnosis, right? It's not. An American doctor named George Miller Beard showed up in 1878, took one look at these lumberjacks and thought, I need to study this immediately. If he startled one of these lumberjacks and yelled, "Throw that axe!" they would do it without thinking. Scream, "Hit him!" and they'd swing before even processing what happened. This involuntary obedience made the disorder weirdly theatrical and extremely alarming. The weirdest thing is, no one really knows why this happened. The best researchers could tell was this was due to being so incredibly isolated that they became conditioned to do as they were told. Once those camps closed, the condition magically went away. The problem was solved by simply moving back into civilization. 8. Trepanation. Those lumberjacks had psychological issues from isolation, but at least nobody drilled holes into their skulls to fix them. About 7,000 years ago, though, that was actually the go-to solution. Trepanation involved using primitive tools to scrape or drill into someone's skull while they were still alive. Archaeological evidence from all around Europe, South America, Africa, and Asia shows thousands of skulls with holes, and many exhibit signs of bone healing, meaning the person survived the procedure and their skulls actually started repairing themselves. Why would anyone agree to do this? Well, back in those days, ancient societies believed mental illness, seizures, and even severe headaches were caused by evil spirits, and the only way to release them was to drill into the head. The wild part is, it actually worked. Not because of spirits, but because relieving pressure on the brain after an injury can genuinely help. Doctors may have had no idea why it worked, but they kept doing it anyway since people kept surviving the procedure. 7. JFK Reloaded. Remember how I talked about convicted felons being able to become president? Well, in 2004, a Scottish company decided the real problem with presidents wasn't their criminal records, it was that there weren't enough video games about assassinating them. Yeah, you heard me right. JFK Reloaded let players step into the role of Lee Harvey Oswald and attempt to shoot President John F. Kennedy as accurately as possible from the Texas Schoolbook Depository. The goal was to match the exact bullet trajectories, timing, and conditions described in the Warren Commission report. Get it right, and you could win over $100,000. The developers tried to claim they weren't trying to sensationalize the tragedy. They pegged it as an interactive historical simulation, meant to test the official explanation of how the assassination happened. Sure, because nothing says historical education like gamifying of a sitting president and offering a cash prize for accuracy. The game was immediately widely condemned. It was called tasteless, disrespectful, and exploitative. The company tried to defend it, but most people saw it for what it was: a cash grab. Did anyone win? Yes, a 16-year-old boy from Paris won with a score of 782 and was awarded $10,712. 6. Akodessewa Fetish Market. The Akodessewa Fetish Market in Lomé, Togo is one of the most famous and unsettling voodoo markets in the world. It's the central hub for practitioners of West African Vodun. This place supplies spiritual materials and ritual items used by healers, priests, and devotees for ceremonies, healing, and communications with the netherworld. Walking through this place feels like stepping into a horror movie prop department. Stalls are packed with animal skulls, bones, skins, feathers, and even dried reptiles, bird carcasses, and monkey heads. These are believed to hold spiritual power and are used in charms, potions, and fetishes. It's a legitimate and sacred place to those who practice. For outsiders, though, it's genuinely unnerving. Rows of dead animals staring back at you while vendors explain how to use monkey skulls for protection spells. 5. A dead boy asks for water. In 2012, a 2-year-old boy in Brazil named Kelvin Santo died of pneumonia. Doctors pronounced him dead, sealed his body in a plastic bag, and sent him home with his family for his wake. 3 hours into the opening casket vigil, family members were saying their final goodbyes when Kelvin's aunt noticed something moving inside the coffin. And she was right. Suddenly, the boy sat up, opened his eyes, and asked his father for water. The family absolutely lost it. As would I. I'd probably pee myself a little, not gonna lie. Anyway, the family was convinced this was a miracle and little Kelvin somehow came back to life. Sadly, the celebration only lasted a few moments. As fast as he woke up, he went back to sleep. His body went limp, and when he stopped breathing, the family rushed him back to the hospital. Doctors tried everything, but it was too late. For a second time, Kelvin was pronounced dead. This time, though, he stayed that way. The family was traumatized, having experienced the worst emotional whiplash of all time. I mean, imagine watching your child die only for them to come back to life and you lose them again within hours and without explanation. 4. Paris Orphanage. Just when you thought humanity couldn't get any worse, let me tell you about a time a Paris orphanage held a raffle in 1911. Was it the prize money? No. A new appliance? Nope, not that either. A trip? Well, that would have been lovely, but no again. This was a raffle for actual living babies. An orphanage organized this fundraiser under the guise of helping abandoned children. They even promoted it as a benevolent cause, claiming the babies were all well cared for and the winners would only be worthy families who were carefully vetted by the proper authorities. Posters went up all over Paris advertising the event, and yes, people actually bought tickets. Was there outrage? Yes, but not as much as you'd think. At the time, this didn't actually seem that outlandish. In the foundling hospital's defense, these children were actually in one of the better situations available. The raffle was indeed intended to find them actual homes, which was better than staying institutionalized forever. We don't know how many babies were raffled off, who won them, or what happened to those children afterward. History just shrugged it off and moved on. The orphanage probably had good intentions, but handing over babies as a prize is absolutely unhinged no matter how you spin it. 3. Gua and Donald. In 1931, psychologist Winthrop Kellogg and his wife decided they wanted twins. But not real twins. They decided to raise a baby chimp with their 10-month-old son Donald as siblings. The goal was to see if a chimp raised exactly like a human would learn human behaviors, including language and reasoning. They brought home this baby chimp, named it Gua, and treated both children identically for 9 whole months. Same clothes, same crib, same tests, same everything. The Kelloggs meticulously recorded every detail to see what would happen. At first, Gua was crushing it. She even responded to commands faster, used tools better, and understood gestures faster than baby Donald. Victory for the chimp! Except, Gua never developed human-like speech or language comprehension despite constant exposure. And then, things took a turn no one saw coming. Donald started mimicking Gua instead of the other way around. He began grunting, whining, and even imitating her vocalizations. His own language development got delayed because he was learning Gua's behaviors instead of the human ones. The Kelloggs realized their little experiment was backfiring big time and shut it down before their son forgot how to be a person. 2. Fluoride Conspiracy. In the 40s, the government decided to throw fluoride into the drinking water to stop cavities. That sounds helpful. Well, not to the masses. People lost their minds and started screaming about communist brainwashing. They were dead serious too. They were convinced this was a Soviet scheme to make Americans stupid and compliant. During peak Cold War paranoia, adding chemicals to tap water did seem like the perfect brainwashing scheme. Opponents even helped spread propaganda claiming fluoride destroyed intelligence and turned citizens into obedient zombies ready for the socialists to take over. I'm not even kidding. The conspiracy gained so much traction that whole communities fought against fluoridation for decades. Of course, none of that is true. Fluoride is now one of the most studied public health measures ever and has been proven safe. But there is still some lingering doubt. To this day, there are still people who believe the government is poisoning the water to control their minds. So yeah, every time you brush your teeth or grab a glass of tap water, someone out there thinks you're getting brainwashed. Enjoy that mental image. 1. Brains fossilize. Did you know your brain can fossilize and survive for thousands of years? It can. Yes, really. Scientists recently discovered that under the right conditions, human brains can be preserved for up to 12,000 years. No, not the skull. The actual gooey brain matter inside it can stay intact for 12,000 years. All thanks to some iron and cool chemistry. The brain is packed with iron, and when you lie down for that forever sleep, that iron goes rogue and starts forming chemical bonds between all the proteins and fats floating around in there. It basically embalms itself from the inside out, locking everything into place like some sort of horrifying biological time capsule. Add in the exact right environmental conditions, like, burying your brain somewhere bone dry, freezing it solid, or sealing it off from all oxygen, and your brain becomes a time capsule. The rest of your body might be gone, but your brain? Still here, perfectly preserved, just waiting to creep everyone out. So yes, your fossilized brain could still be here, hanging around in some museum basement 10,000 years from now. Hey, you never know. Science might just find a way to make brain transplants happen, and then you can literally live on forever. Have fun thinking about that one every day for the next 2 weeks. I know I will. Well, there you have it. 25 unsettling facts that are now permanently stuck in your brain, right there next to all the other stuff you wish you could forget. Welcome to my life. From eye worms to baby raffles, we've covered some truly disturbing ground today. If you enjoyed having your evening ruined by facts you can never unlearn, check out our other video, 25 facts that'll haunt your brain. It's just as dark and twisted as this one, and you'll regret every second of it. If you need something a little less daunting after all this, I've also got 25 weirdest jobs people actually had in history. It's bizarre, but also hilarious. I'll link both in the description. But before you go, drop a comment and tell me which fact messed with you the most. Was it the eye worms, the anglerfish, the cannibalism? I need to know which one's keeping you up tonight. And that's it for today. If you survived this whole video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and ring that bell so you never miss out on our content. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Assuming you can still sleep after all this.